Welcome. Today is your first day of two-step equations. We are starting with the basics, so your objective for today I can solve two-step equations using addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division by earning at least 7 out of 10 points on the exit ticket today. Now, hopefully by now you've already grabbed the notes from the front. As we go through the notes, please copy them down. If you need to pause the video at any time to copy something else, please do so. If we look at our first example, we have c divided by 2 minus 13 equals 7. My first step in solving this, I need to start on the side that is with the variable, and I need to eliminate that minus 13. If I use my inverse operations, that tells me I'm going to add 13, and what I do to one side, I do to the other side. So I'm left with c divided by 2 equals 20. Now, that positive 13 and negative 13, those equal 0. So we're just going to cross them off. We don't have to worry about it. Now we're down to a basic one-step equation that we focused on last week. C is divided by 2. So if I use my inverse operation, I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 for step 2 to get my answer of c equals 40. Now, the most important part of this, you need to go back and check your answer. When you do this, you are taking your variable and you are plugging it into the original equation. So in this case, c equals 40, I need to plug it back into my equation. Now, for my gentlemen especially, who tend to get a little lazy, do not just write it down, actually solve it. If I look, 40 divided by 2 is 20. 20 minus 13 does give me 7, so it works. Writing it down is not enough. Actually plug it into your calculator and check your work. Now, if we look at our second equation, I have 7 equals 2 minus n. Well, I'm going to start with the number again that is on the same side as the variable, but not either divided or multiplied by it. So I'm starting with my 2. It's a positive 2, so the inverse is going to be subtracting 2 from both sides. 7 minus 2 gives me 5. My 2 minus 2, again, gives me 0, so I can cancel those out, and I'm left with a negative n. Now, the most important thing here, n does not have a number in front of it, so we need to put one there. Anytime there is not a coefficient in front of it, we need to add a 1. So instead of saying negative n, we're going to put negative 1n. Now this shows me my variable is not by itself, so for step 2, I need to divide both sides by negative 1. In the end, I get negative 5 is equal to n. But we're not done. Take that negative 5 and plug it back into your original equation to see if it works. 2 minus negative 5, well, minus a negative means it becomes a positive, and 2 plus 5 does give me 7. So it works. But make sure you double check everything. Now, we've done the examples. If we look at our notes, you always want to make sure you're using your inverse operations. So for step 1 of these basic problems, you are adding or subtracting the number that is on the same side as the variable. And that's super important because we want to make sure we're always trying to isolate the variable or get it by itself. Again, if you need to pause, please do at any time. Step 2, you are multiplying or dividing the number that is attached to the variable. We're still using our inverse operations, but now we are multiplying or dividing. For the check, you plug your answer back into the original equation to verify that it worked. And I can't stress enough, make sure you actually check your answer. Don't just plug it in and assume it's going to work. Once you finish copying these notes, you may flip over to the back. We're going to do a couple examples together. Now, our first example, 5 equals 4x minus 3. The big thing that we want to start with, we can plug our line right down the middle. That's reminding me what I do to one side, I do to the other. If I look at step 1, I want to add or subtract the number that's on the same side as the variable. So in this case, I'm subtracting. Our inverse tells us we need to add 3 to both sides. Now again, negative 3 plus 3 cancels and gives us 0. So we're left with 8 is equal to 4x. Back back to the one-step problems. If 4 is multiplied by x, we need to do the opposite. So I'm going to divide both sides by 4. And I'm going to be left with an answer of 2 is equal to x. Now, make sure you go back in and check your answers. So in this case, 5 is equal to 4 times 2x, or 4 times 2 minus 3. Well, 4 times 2 gives me 8, and 8 minus 3 gives me 5. So it does work. But make sure, again, that you are plugging your numbers in and solving it. If we look at our second example, we have 1 plus v divided by 8 is equal to 2. First thing, I'm going to draw that line so that I know I am solving the problem on both sides. If I start with the number that is on the same side as the variable, I'm starting with positive 1. So to get it to the other side, I need to subtract 1 from both sides of the equation. When I do that, 1 minus 1 gives me 0, and I am left with v over 8 and positive 1. Now, since v is divided by 8, when we use our inverse operations, we need to multiply both sides by 8. When we do this, we get a final answer of v is equal to 8. Now again, make sure you plug in your number to check your equation. I have 1 plus 8 over 8 is equal to 2. Now this goes back to order of operations. 8 divided by 8 comes first. We can't add. So 8 divided by 8 gives me 1, and 1 plus 1 does give me 2. At this point, if you are still struggling and need some more help, there is going to be an extra help video with a couple more examples. Please go watch that and work through them. If you feel confident to work on your own, solve the 2 problems that are underneath these practice problems. When you are done, raise your hand so your teacher can check your work as well as your answer.